Hi, I'm Isabel and welcome back to Engineer Your Space. Today I'm really excited to be sharing with you my solution for hiding that ugly AC unit that I have in my apartment. One of the biggest eyesores that I have in my apartment is this really big and bulky AC unit that sticks out below this window when you walk in. Now, I looked everywhere for a piece of furniture that would be able to conceal it, but still give me access to it when I need to use it, and also give me shoe storage, and that just proved to be nearly impossible. Actually, it was impossible. So I came up with my own design using wood scraps that I had accumulated in my closet. So here's what I ended up using to make the structure of my table/shoe rack. 1x2s, 1x3s, 3/4 of an inch thick MDF, and 1/4 of an inch thick plywood. I'll have a link at the end of the video that you can click on so you can get a complete list of tools, materials, and supplies that you need to make this project. Now the first thing I tackled to make my table were the legs, and for that I used 3/4 inch thick MDF. I made 4 supports to attach the legs to the top by cutting 1x2 furring strips. I cut them 3/4 of an inch shorter than the width of the legs. Next, I lined up all the boards for the top, and this was to mark the location of the screws that will be used to attach the legs to the top boards. I drilled pilot holes, making sure to keep my drill bit as straight as possible. It's easier to do this step before attaching the supports to the legs. Next, I placed the supports at the top of 2 of the legs, leaving 3/4 of an inch space at the front, and then I drilled pilot holes in between the existing pilot holes and attached the supports with 1¼ inch long screws. For the middle leg, I attached supports on both sides. The last thing I did to the legs was to add 1/4 inch thick screen molding on the inside of the legs to support the shoe rack shelves. I used a speed square to mark the location and just nailed them into place. Next comes attaching the legs to the top. I positioned the legs so that they're flush with the front of the top, but so that they leave a 1/4 inch gap at the back so that there's room for the plywood backing that will go there later. I used a speed square to make sure that the middle leg is at 90 degrees before screwing it in place with 2-inch screws. Doing it this way means that no screws will show on the top. Since I was using MDF pieces that I had left over from another project, they weren't exactly the right height for what I wanted my table to be. So a quick fix for that was simply to attach 1x2 to the bottom of the legs with some screws. Next, I nailed 1/4 inch plywood to the back of the shoe rack section to add stability to the table. But I couldn't do that on the other side because of the AC unit sticking out of the wall. So I added a 1x2 in between the bottom of the legs of that section, in front of the AC unit. And I recessed it 3/4 of an inch, just like the leg supports. I find that using clamps to hold the piece in place while installing it is pretty helpful. With the structure finished, it was time to paint it. I used a semi-transparent stain from Behr in a color called Pinto White for the top and for the 1x2s at the bottom of the legs. And I primed the rest of the table and then used a glossy white paint in a color called Swiss Coffee. One thing you can do to get a smoother paint finish on the edges is to add some iron-on wood edging before you paint. For the shelves, I used 1x3s that I had, and I glued a 1x2 to the edge of the 1x3 that was at the front to give it a more finished look. I also glued a 1x2 to the top to hide the leg supports. To cover the AC unit when I'm not using it, I built a panel by first making a simple frame with 1x2s. I drilled pilot holes with a countersink drill bit to recess the screw heads. One of the things that you can use to fill in the panel in the middle is some metal grating that's sometimes used for radiator covers. But I wanted to try something different, and I love the look of cane webbing, so I wanted to give that a try. I ended up getting mine online, and I'll have a link in the video description below that you can click on so you can check out the details. This was a bit of an experiment because I'd never used cane webbing before, but I love the way it turned out. First, I had to soak the cane webbing in lukewarm water for about 2 hours to make it more supple. And then I stapled it to the back of the frame, tapping in the staples to make sure that they're in all the way. You'll want to put in as many staples as possible because as the cane dries, it shrinks and that creates tension around the frame. So if you don't have enough staples evenly distributed, it might cause your frame to warp. I let the cane dry overnight and settle, and then I poured some wood glue around the edges covering the staples, just to make sure the cane stays in place. I let that dry and I cut off the excess cane along the sides with a utility knife. My frame did warp a little bit from the tension. and it caused the paint to chip at the joints, but it wasn't anything that couldn't be fixed with some wood filler and paint. Next, I screwed magnetic latches under the top of the table to secure the panel. And then I made some brackets with aluminum flashing that I cut, bent, and painted with some white nail polish before screwing them to the bottom of the front support. They just hold the bottom of the panel in place and keep it flush with the front of the table. I love how I now have easy access to the AC unit when I need it, but I don't have to look at it when I'm not using it. And it's really handy to have a place to put my keys and my shoes. All in all, I'm really happy with the way this turned out. Now, if you want to get more details on the tools, supplies, and materials that I use in this project, you can go to my website, engineeryourspace.com. If you want to check out how I got rid of those vertical blinds above my AC unit, you can click on this video here. And if you want to find out how I built a bench using MDF, you can click on this video here. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss any of my upcoming episodes. See you next time.